Hello everyone, have you ever experienced catching cod with your own hands? Today, let's go with me to discover how people fish for cod. Let's go. Cod have enjoyed somewhat of a resurgence over the past few seasons, and for many anglers in the northeast, catching cod can be a new experience. And then there are those who have had the best of times cod fishing and have had plenty of opportunities to develop their skills when it comes to putting bacala in the cooler. I was lucky enough to experience good years, and back then I was an avid cod fisherman. Therefore, I can honestly say that I have the bragging rights of regularly winning the largest groups of cod, and most cod, on open boat trips out of Montic Point, Park Judith Bay and Sheepshead. And although there are new methods, especially artificial ones, for catching cod, this fish remains unchanged. As a result, the strategies that helped me win the cod game many years ago still work today. The crux of the matter is what made me successful in the cod game. Initially, I didn't have much success when I started cod fishing. However, I am a quick learner and observer, so I am always interested in finding out what successful fishermen are doing, those who consistently fish high and win many bets. Furthermore, I have no qualms about interrogating and seeing what the old people are doing. As a result, I discovered some interesting information from them that still holds true today. They are determined to leave the boat no matter where they fish from. Why so? Their thinking is that too many anglers' lines are converging in a limited area, especially if the current is fast. The likelihood of their bait being chosen by cod has decreased significantly. Sure, they can catch a fish. However, there is another pitfall when one's rig is in the pack. That pitfall is the tendency for your rig to become entangled, often into a terrible bird's nest. These tangles take time to untangle, wasting valuable fishing time. Usually, it is necessary to cut out all the lines requiring you to retruss, which takes more time. Painting your sinker a bright color, yellow, orange, white or bright red, will help you identify your rig and get back to fishing sooner if you get tangled. Choose a spot on the boat where the lines converge in less. Therefore, the location of choice is the stern, especially at the stern or bow corner. There is another reason why these locations are the locations of choice. You can throw your rig out of the boat much easier. It is much more difficult to do it from the sides or the middle of the stern because there is no turning room. Mind you, overhead casting is never allowed in an open boat for obvious reasons. Therefore, it is important that you learn and perfect the technique of handball throwing. Casting with a reel is much easier, and while cod fishing has long been the domain of conventional reels, some spinning reels today are designed to do the heavy lifting in deep water for big fish. Either way, make it a point to practice your handball throwing techniques. If you get good at it, you'll be able to drop your rig anywhere from 20 to 40 yards from the boat. The result is more strikes and ultimately more fish. When starting to bait, don't overload the hook. Sea clams tend to be the bait of choice on most open boats for cod fishing. A clam large enough to cover the hook is enough. At all costs, avoid getting the hook tip twisted around your main line. Especially in strong currents, baited hooks on long leaders tend to spin, often wrapping around your main line like a flag around a flagpole in a strong wind. And no, the answer is not to shorten the leader, because doing so will reduce your chances of catching fish. That's another reason not to use too much bait on your hook, because heavier bait has a greater tendency to wrap around your line. It starts with a three-way barrel swivel, which somewhat reduces the twisting of the leader around the main line. More importantly, it is the section of transparent plastic aquarium tubing that is attached to the swivel joint, see diagram. The tube should be cut about 6 inches long. Before tying the hook end to the swivel, slide the plastic tube onto the hook end and tie a knot. Next, slide the tube snugly into the swivel. Use fluorocarbon as leader material and keep your hook leader length between 18 and 24 inches. It will droop if it is too long. Consider using a double hook rig when fishing relatively open bottom. To do so, attach the second hook about 18 to 20 inches above the bottom hook. It will increase your chances of catching more fish, but will also increase your chances of contamination. By all means, bring additional pre-tied trusses. No matter how careful you are, you will lose your rig, especially if fishing erect longline fishing is a technique used by commercial fishermen in which a longline, or main line, is hooked with multiple hooks. Each hook is attached at intervals by shorter branch lines called nodes. Then, using hand bait, these lines will be released into the sea and, depending on the target species, they will be anchored to the seabed, fishing line on the sea bottom, or drifting, long line fishing on the sea bottom. Deep long line fishing is effective in catching surface fish such as sable, cod or flounder, while it is more common to catch swordfish or tuna using long floating lines. The lines of commercial vessels can run for several miles, and so radio beacons and marker buoys are used to help mariners. The crew locates the wires they have placed. Buoys are also used to fix the depth at which the line is floated to vary the species of fish being targeted as well as bait selection. Some commercial fishermen also use glow sticks attached to lead lines to make bait more attractive, but also to attract the smaller fish that the target species preys on. Commercial routes vary in size and dimension. Long, with small operators in the Pacific using only 25 hooks per route, but most commercial vessels using several thousand hooks over many miles of passage. The long method is considered much preferable compared to trawling as a means to protect bottom ocean habitats. According to research conducted by scientists, longline fishing when compared to trawling has little impact on hazardous marine ecosystems. Headlines in the public domain exploit this positive finding, and consumer demand for line-caught fish rather than other methods has seen a sharp global increase in the adoption of longline fishing. A method widely adopted for wholesale commercial fishing, but longline fishing can be adapted to suit amateur or small-scale fishing and is quite easy and inexpensive to set up. Using a length of main line attached to 2 float lines and weighted to suit the depth of the sea where you are fishing, you can attach as many baited hooks as are suitable for your target as long as they are evenly spaced. With one end of the line attached to the flag, buoy, simply clip each baited hook and slowly lower each hook down the side of the boat until you reach the end of the line. Repeat the same process as for the beginning of your main line and attach the weight to the last marker buoy. Use local bait such as squid, hermit crabs, mussels, clams or worms, and be sure to check with your local marine fisheries officer about local rules and regulations before you begin. Fishing line about half an hour before low tide and return about an hour and a half before the next low tide to retrieve your fishing line. Longline, as we know it today, appears to have originated in Japan ca. Mid-19th century, it was reported that a fisherman named Fuji used the equipment in the Izu region of Japan during the Kei era, 1848 to 1853, and that locals in the Bosso area also used the techniques. Similar technique, however, there is also evidence that locals in a fishing village near Tokyo Bay were using this type of equipment as early as the 1750s. It was not until the early 20th that this technique began to be applied when a Japanese fisherman named Amos introduced fishing to Hawaii in 1917. Following the increase in mobility in the fishing industry, this technique began appearing in European waters, with cases occurring in the Mediterranean in the 1920s and in the US in the mid-1940s off the coast of New England. Each region adopted the basic technique and adapted it a little to suit the environment in which they fish, the vessels they use and the species of fish they target. A form of longline that uses synthetic line to float just below the surface was developed in the 1960s in Norway to target porbeagle sharks. At the same time, Cuban fishermen also used similar methods to fish for swordfish at night. Further advances in the mobility and range of fishing fleets further expand the practice of fishing. Adopted fishing techniques, and by the 1970s this technique had become the main method for harvesting fish commercially. Due to the fact that fishing with long lines occurs at evenly spaced intervals, this technique is considered a conservative and habitat-friendly fishing method when compared to other. Of course, as with rod and reel fishing, there is no certainty as to the species of fish that will be caught as a result of the bait used, but commercial fishermen are tightly regulated in reporting their catches, and regulators' US executives must have independent observers to ensure accuracy. Report.